Welcome everyone, I'm Isaac Kaleji and this is Africa Matters. From political prisoner to president in less than 2 weeks. That's a remarkable turnaround of 44-year-old Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who is set to become Senegal's and Africa's youngest democratically elected head of state. And he's promising change and a break with the past. Bassirou Diomaye Faye is pledging to govern with humility and transparency. He enters the top job as a relatively unknown politician. So let's take a look at what we know about him. Faye was born on March 25, 1980, to a family of farmers from Indiaganiayo, a small town about 100 kilometers from the capital Dakar. He graduated with a master's degree in law in 2004. But it was during his time as a tax inspector that he met Ousmane Sonko, Senegal's top opposition leader. In 2014, both men founded the now disbanded Pastef Party, where Faye rose to the number 2 position of General Secretary. He lost his bid to become mayor in his hometown just 2 years ago. He was then charged last year with defamation and other offenses over a Facebook post critical of the government. And thanks to an amnesty law introduced this year, Faye and his political mentor, Sonko, were freed on March 14th, just 10 days to the election that secured him a stunning first-round presidential victory. Faye has vowed to shake up the political establishment through policies such as renegotiating oil and gas contracts and reforming the regional currency CFA francs. And this is what he says is on his priority list.
In view of the urgency of the situation and the hope placed on us, we will work relentlessly and methodically on priority projects, the most important of which we consider to be national reconciliation and rebuilding the foundations of our way of life together, the rebuilding of institutions, a significant reduction in the cost of living, and inclusive sectoral national consultations on the evaluation and relaunch of public policies.
And the Senegalese people are hoping that Faye will swiftly deliver sweeping reforms that will change their lives, not least to create jobs for the millions of young people who propelled him to power. Maimouna Ba went to the streets of the capital Dakar to find out what their expectations are for the new president.
We are expecting him to consider the plight of the youth, especially creating many jobs that would make the youth thrive in various fields. We also want him to change the judiciary system to eliminate the possibility of an individual becoming a dictator. The youth believe he can execute the job. I'm emphasizing once again, he should listen to the youth.
We want the president-elect to focus the electricity, the cost of living, and more especially the fishing industry. All the fishes are being exported. We want it to stop. We have suffered a lot. We want a better Senegal under his government.
I am satisfied because we can see that democracy is advancing in our country. We really hope that the new president, who is elected by the majority, will manage the country well.
As the new president assumes office, he faces a daunting task of meeting the expectations of the Senegalese people. The journey ahead will be challenging, but with the support of the citizens, there is hope for a brighter future.
Let's hear more from Marie Josiah Enga, who is coordinator of Wadimos Network in Ghana. She joins me here in Accra. Thank you so much, Marie. Now, Faye during the campaign promised radical changes. Do you think that he can deliver on this promise, especially when he has minority in government?
Yeah. So following Diomaye Faye's election, there is a lot of expectations on him, and as you mentioned, the minority in parliament will not play in his favor. But nevertheless, we believe that Faye has a very huge support from the people. So that's an important factor. Right now, he incarnates a break or a rupture of the old, let's say, Macky Sall system, where Macky Sall failed to kind of take into consideration the people aspiration, and as a matter of fact, a lot of young people have been disillusioned with Macky Sall regime. So For me, it's true that the minority in parliament is important to think about it, but personally, I don't think it will play against Faye presidential mandate. For me, he has a lot of chance because he has a lot of support. He is young, and he's able to, defend or incarnate the value of the Senegalese population.
You talk about him being a young leader or the youngest leader in Senegal. Of course, that comes with little political experience. Do you see this as a liability or an asset in trying to fix the problems of Senegal, and why?
Diomaye Faye is the youngest leader so far in Senegal. And as I was saying earlier, the support that he has got from the population, from the people, is very key. So it means that we also need to take into consideration the fact that the role that Ousmane Sonko played in Diomaye Faye's election, because a lot of people were looking up at Ousmane Sonko, and then the fact that he has transferred his kind of legitimacy to Faye, it makes it a very particular context. So I don't think that his young age will be a liability for him. I think it's a matter of working hand in hand with the people in Senegal, understanding their needs, their aspiration, and to be that incarnation that the people want him to be.
A break with the past has been a popular slogan as young democratic and military leaders take over power in Africa, especially in West Africa. Is there a shift in the way they view and execute domestic and foreign policies?
Yes, of course. I think it will have a lot of impact on the way they pursue foreign policy. Part of Diomaye Faye promises was to kind of review relationship with France, for instance. And we have also seen the trend in West Africa, especially the Sahel countries, breaking away with those countries in favor of Russia. So it just explains how the foreign policy, of course, is going to be shaped by this new development. As I was saying earlier, Faye is a symbol of rapture. So yes, things are not going to be done like it has been done before. Some priorities will be granted to more local solutions instead of foreign imported solutions. So that's one of the key points that constituted Diomaye Faye's campaign. So yes, we think that there's going to be a shift, but also we believe that it has to be taken with a lot of caution, because those long-lasting relationships can just be wiped off like that just at a moment. So it is very important for the new Senegalese leadership to take into consideration the fact that there will be a need to assess the current relationship between the foreign partners and the people in Africa.
Are we beginning to see a new generation of leaders taking over power in Africa? And are they delivering against the promises that they have made?
It's a wish that the trends keep moving in Africa, not only in West Africa, but also in the other parts of Africa. For instance, in Cameroon, we have the long-lasting president. When he was getting into power in 1982, Diomaye Faye was just 2 years. So this experience can be taken as a very impactful experience and can trigger some change of mindset in other countries in West Africa, in Central Africa, everywhere in Africa. And as I was saying, Diomaye Faye is the symbol of change, the symbol of a new era. So we look up to Senegal, and we also acknowledge those young leaders from the military regime who, they have made promises in the context of political transition. So we are yet to see what will be the outcome of those promises, what are the benefits that the populations are going to reap from them. So it's kind of a test period for us, for the young generation, and also a kind of an encouragement for more young people to believe that they can make it and change the narrative of long-lasting and old presidents.
And it's important that they deliver on the promises that they've made, right? Because obviously that could make a case for more young people taking over political leadership in Africa.
Exactly. So most of them are just at the early stage of their political, let's say, their political careers. For instance, the different coups d'etats in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, they all started in 2021, 2022, and recently 2023. So there is still some more time to give a fair judgment on the capacity of those young leaders to actually achieve the promises. Even though it is true that already there has been a lot of critics on how, concerning transition countries, how the transitions timelines are implemented. There has been a lot of critics as if things are delaying and they are not performing well. But in the long term, what we are interested on is to see the benefits, the changes. And we really look up at Senegal because Senegal, being a very stable democracy in West Africa, it will give, it will provide a very significant experience for other countries.
And staying in Senegal, we'll look back at outgoing President Macky Sall's record as he prepares to hand over power. When President Sall took office in 2012, he promised to fix some of the same issues like unemployment and corruption and shorten presidential terms, which were increased by his predecessor. But analysts say his economic legacy is a mixed bag, as Randolph Nogel reports.
When Macky Sall was sworn in as president for the first time on April 2, 2012, Senegal was facing countless economic problems. In his inauguration speech, he promised to make life easier for his people, addressing the high cost of living, unemployment, and frequent power cuts.
When President Macky Sall was elected, he won with 65% of the vote. It was a huge score. We had hope in him. Looking at his first term in office, we could see that he was working on the infrastructure and also giving hope to the Senegalese.
He also promised to limit presidential terms, undoing a key constitutional change made by his predecessor, Abdoulaye Wade.
I will propose a reform of the Constitution, which will, among other things, reduce the length of the term of the President of the Republic to 5 years, renewable a single time. And I'm here to say that I will apply this reform to myself. I'm committing myself to carrying out a term of no more than 5 years. And this reform, which will limit the number of terms to 2 and the duration of the term to 5 years, will not be something that can ever be modified again.
During his tenure, he oversaw the development of infrastructure projects, including airports, rail networks, and industrial parks. But unemployment continued to rise, and critics pointed to poor economic management and corruption. Sall's government was also destabilized by controversy, with allegations of fraud and a crackdown on opposition.
When he was re-elected for his second term, what we saw was a dictator. He was oppressing the youth and opposition. We have experienced a lot of protests in the past 3 years, arresting innocent people, which led to the death of nearly 60 youths.
As President Sall's tenure comes to a close, Senegalese people reflect on the mixed legacy he'll leave behind after nearly a decade in office.
In previous years, it was marvelous. It was really. You don't work much and you get a lot of money. But now it's a shame. It's a shame. They say that even money doesn't come out. You work hard and you don't get much.
The 12 years of Macky Sall have been hellish, if that's not too much to say. Macky Sall has made us see all sorts of things. For example, I haven't seen much progress in terms of investment. What we had, what I invested, I didn't see much progress.
The election itself was not without controversy. In February, as campaigning was about to start, Sall ordered the indefinite postponement of the election, citing electoral irregularities. Protesters clashed with police, calling Sall a dictator and decrying his suppression of critics. After a month of unrest, the Constitutional Court intervened, ordering that the election go ahead, albeit a month late. As promised, Sall stepped away, endorsing his party's candidate, Amadou Ba, a promise that may be remembered as one of the few he managed to keep. Randolph Nogle, Africa Matters.
We head to Malawi now, which has joined Zambia in declaring a state of natural disaster. That's because an El Nino-induced drought has devastated its agricultural sector. The crisis has left millions of people without food and forced President Lazarus Chakwera to launch an appeal of more than $200 million for urgently needed food aid. Lamek Masina reports from Mulanje in southern Malawi.
Malawi has been gripped with a drought in 23 of its 28 districts, where about 2 million people are in need of food. Among them is Mphatso Sangwa, a single mother of 4 children in Mulanje district. It's one of 10 hardest hit districts.
I'm badly affected because this is something I never expected. I applied fertilizers in vain because I harvested too little from my 3-hectare maize garden. Besides the dry spell, the crops were also attacked by armyworms.
Mphatso says this year she has only managed to reap 10 kilograms out of the 50 bags she normally harvests from this garden, which have already run out.
We now skip some meals during the day to keep ourselves going with the little food we can manage to buy. Most of the times we survive on cassava from our small garden.
Mphatso is among 2 million farming households that President Lazarus Chakwera says are affected by El Nino, the weather condition which has also affected Zambia, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, forced Chakwera to launch an urgent appeal for more than $200 million in food aid. However, agriculture experts say that Malawi, as an agro-based economy, could have avoided the impact of dry spells.
The fact that we are not able to do irrigated farming, that in itself is a recipe for us to suffer when there are dry spells. So investing in agricultural infrastructure in this country has been poor.
Malawi has been experiencing recurrent dry spells for several weeks since November of last year. Government statistics say the situation has affected 700,000 hectares of the country's main food crop, maize. The figure represents about 44% of the country's national crop area. Economists fear a rise in food inflation.
For example, 2023, 2024, by the time when we are, finishing the month of December, it reached 43%. That's food inflation. So that food inflation also causes a problem to these other goods and services in terms of their prices. So this thing is going to cause inflationary prices of goods and services on the economy.
However, some economists believe that the food shortages facing Sangwa and other Malawians would be history once the Mega Farms Initiative, a government plan that aims to boost large-scale crop production and add value to agricultural exports, takes root. Lamek Masina, Africa Matters, Mulanje, Malawi.
Zimbabwe is also feeling the heat as the drought leaves 2.7 million people in rural areas in need of food aid. That's according to the UN's World Food Programme. The hunger crisis is compounded by hyperinflation and failed harvest in a country once seen as Southern Africa's breadbasket. Officials are now looking at increasing food imports, as Brenda Radido reports.
Ladies Conge's maize field is normally green at this time of the year, but it is already parched yellow. Drought from the El Nino weather pattern has withered her crops. Conge is struggling to feed her family. Her tobacco crop, which usually brings in some extra cash, has also failed.
The rains came very late. We harvested nothing at all. We have no food and we are having to buy maize.
In a good year, Zimbabwean farmers would have fresh, firm produce to rely on, but the fields are bare this time.
I grew small grains as an experiment and they were saved by the early rains. I'm assured of at least one bucket of the small grains, and this has made me realize that this region is suited for growing small grains.
Zimbabweans have been urged to tighten their belts as authorities scramble to find alternative food supplies.
Traditionally, we have been buying organic maize from Zambia. Now, Zambia doesn't have, and Malawi, another source market, also doesn't have. We are all now buying GMO maize from South Africa.
The government is determined to complete these 2 dams in Gwai, Shangani this year to help address the food crisis and water shortage.
If these 2 dams are completed, I think we are going to have a long-lasting solution for the districts, for the provinces, which are Harare, Maisendra and Rushinga, in terms of food production and in terms of food and water supply.
But in the meantime, more than 13 million people across Southern Africa can't put food on the table, and that number is expected to surge in the coming months as a result of months of poor rains kicks in. Brenda Radido, Africa Matters.
To Rwanda now, where commuters are grappling with higher fares after the government decided to end subsidies in the public transport sector. This move is hitting many individuals hard, particularly those already struggling with high poverty rates and low incomes. Diana Ariza brings us this report from the capital.
In the bustling city of Kigali, Claudine's daily routine is a testament of perseverance amidst adversity. As a single mother, every penny counts, especially after recent fare increases to public transport put even more pressure on her already precarious situation. With a monthly income of roughly $23, Claudine finds herself grappling with the harsh reality of spending 2/3 of her salary on transportation alone. Once able to afford the journey to and from work for a modest sum, she now watches helplessly as a significant portion of her earnings is wiped out due to the abrupt spike in fares.
I wish the fares could be reduced instead of increased. It's becoming increasingly difficult to make ends meet, especially with the urgent responsibilities of raising my son single-handedly.
The Rwandan government announced on February 11th that it would be scrapping subsidized fares. This initiative began in October 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, with the government opting to subsidize 1/3 of passengers. A middle-income earner sees the fare increases from a different perspective.
While I empathize with those facing financial strain due to the fare increases, I also recognize the necessity of investing in other national development areas.
Since 2020, the government has allocated $68 million on public transport and about $19.5 million on fuel price subsidies.
However, citing the burden on key sectors like fertilizers, education and infrastructure, the government is relocating priorities to ensure sustained progress and development.
Subsidies in transport, we've been always saying this, it's not sustainable. The government could not have continued subsidizing transport. The second issue with subsidies is that it crowds out the private investment. People would always count on government investment, etc. Instead of being innovative, bringing new solutions in transport, being creative so that they can find cheaper options for consumers, for people who commute using public transport. So it's rather an issue than a solution.
Amidst the bigger picture of this decision, the daily struggles of people like Claudine serve as a poignant reminder of the human cost associated with policy changes. Diana Iriza, Africa Matters, Kigali, Rwanda.
And finally this week, we head to Jinja in southern Uganda. The city is one of the fastest growing industrial centers in the country, thanks to its electric power plants at dams on the Nile River. That's our show this week. Let us know of what you think about the stories you've seen. Share your ideas and feedback. You can find us on X and on YouTube by searching TR2 World Africa Matters. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Isaac College in Accra, Ghana.